Hey everyone, I'm Maximus. I'm here with Virtual Spectre and Moves Like Jagger, and we're here for Tome of Knowledge today. And if you don't know what Tome of Knowledge is, well, you better no, you better learn.
Mhm.
Tome of Knowledge is our podcast where we just talk about whatever we feel like relating to D&D. It can be news, rules, whatever we feel like. So I hope you all are
Yeah,
having a
basically.
fantastic day today.
Whatever chat wants to. Like today's topic was a request from a community member. So we
Ah,
we pulled it together and we're gonna
mhm.
talk about alignment in Dungeons and
Yes.
Dragons.
Mhm.
Yes. Alignment. So if you haven't already, please go to our YouTube channel and just take a look at it, open it up and watch our stream and mute it if you don't like YouTube. But you know what? It really helps us to get on our path to YouTube partnership. So be very grateful if you all did that.
Yep. If you like what we're doing, subscribe, like, comment.
Smash that bell, thumbs it up, words that YouTubers say.
Yeah.
And if you don't like what we're doing, tell me about it. I can take it. Probably.
Yeah, we're always open to feedback, suggestions. We wanna make it better for everybody.
So with all that out of the way, do you want to start talking about alignment?
Yes.
So I pulled up alignment in the player's handbook because I think it's a good idea to understand what the book actually says about what we're talking about before we start talking about it. So, player's handbook talks about alignment under the personality and background section if you're looking in your book. So, it basically says that a typical creature in like a game world has an alignment, and it broadly describes their moral and personal attitudes. So there are two axes when it comes to alignment. There is one that defines their morality, and then there's another one that sort of describes their attitude towards like society and order. So the one axis that is morality, it's good, neutral, and evil. And the one that talks more about their attitude towards society is lawful, neutral, and chaotic. So when you combine those two, that's where we get our alignments from. So there's 9 sort of distinct alignments that come from this little grid, if you can imagine. So to kind of get into it, let's just talk. I think we just talk a little bit about each of them, and then figure out what they mean
Yeah,
and what they are.
yeah. Good.
So
Do that guy.
when it comes to like lawful good, right? Typically at the top left of the grid in most most of what I've seen of being represented in a grid. So lawful good are just creatures that can be counted on to do the right thing as expected by society. So the book says gold dragons and paladins are typically lawful good. Um, Neutral good are people that do the best they can to help others according to their needs. It says many celestials are neutral good. Chaotic good, creatures that act as their conscience directs them with little regard for what others expect. So, copper dragons and unicorns are their examples there. Lawful neutral, so people that act in accordance with the law or tradition or personal code. So it says modrons and many wizards and monks are lawful neutral. And then there's what they call true neutral, in the middle there, it's the alignment of those who prefer to steer clear of moral questions and don't take sides. They just seem to do what's best at the time. And it calls out druids are traditionally neutral as well as typical townsfolk. Chaotic neutral. They follow their whims. They hold their personal freedom above all else. And it calls out rogues and bards as chaotic neutral. Some examples. Lawful evil are creatures that act with arbitrary violence, spurred by their greed, hatred, or bloodlust. So, demons and red dragons are chaotic evil. I think I messed that up. I said lawful, but then I described chaotic. So, what I just said is chaotic evil. Chaotic evil creatures act with arbitrary violence, spurred by their greed, hatred, or bloodlust. So, demons and red dragons. Neutral evil are basically the alignment of those who do whatever they can get away with without compassion or qualms. It talks about Yugoloths are typically neutral evil. Not a very good definition, not a good distinction, I think, but you know.
And
um,
Right.
basically, they don't give a F.
yeah, chaotic really doesn't give either.
I think that yeah, they both don't give no shits, you know?
Yeah. So lawful evil, its creatures methodically take what they want with the limits of a code, tradition, loyalty, or order. And it calls out devils and blue dragons as typically lawful evil. So some quick basic, I guess, definitions from the player's handbook. There's plenty of other places where you can find sort of more in-depth information about them. And then, yeah, so you can find more, but there's the basics there for alignment. And then I'll also mention that there are specifically, there's sort of what they call the 10th alignment is unaligned. And with unaligned, that's basically says that most creatures that lack the capacity for rational thought don't have alignments. So if they can't make moral or ethical choices and just act in accordance to their nature, they're unaligned. And it says, sharks, savage predators, but they're not evil. They just don't have an alignment. They just do what they do because they're sharks and they can't, they don't understand moral or ethical choices.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So I learned something
Mhm.
today.
Yeah, a lot of beasts are unaligned, I believe, and
I
some
just
other
assumed
creatures.
beasts were neutral. There's but
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a term for unaligned for beasts of those natures.
Yeah, which I think makes sense because if the two axes are, one is like your morality and one's how you approach like society and order. Animals are just animals. They don't really have any opinions on either of them. They just do what they do.
So if I had a character that was raised by badgers, would my character be unaligned?
No, well, because your character has the capacity for rational thought, right? And they are
Uh,
capable of making moral and ethical choices.
my character was raised in the wilds. No humanoid contact
Hmm.
to uh corrupt my badger ways, you know?
That's a good question. It's a good question, but I think that yeah, I don't know. We can get into that too. That's interesting because even though you were raised in the badger ways, right? Doesn't mean you have the same like mental capacity as a badger either. You're still whatever. Right? We'll say human in this case. You're still human, but I don't know. Up to your DM, I guess. What do you think, VS? If you're raised by badgers, would you be unaligned?
Uh, yeah. I mean, uh, I if you were raised by badgers and just stayed in the woods your entire life, sure. I think as soon as you start to mingle with other humans or humanoids and you start to learn potentially from other humans or humanoids,
Hmm.
I think then you start taking on a bit more. So you should be pushed to an alignment at that point, I think. Unless you're
Maybe.
just so feral, I don't know that you
Yeah,
just
because like you don't understand common or other languages. You basically just speak badger, right? And the only people or humanoids that could communicate you with are casters who can speak with animals. You wouldn't be able to be persuaded unless you somehow manage to learn a language from an intelligent humanoid race and then learn about societal things. So yeah, I guess you become unaligned, but then if you learn these things, then you maybe perhaps
yeah,
would be
yeah.
persuaded to an
I think the
alignment change.
human capacity to learn and to have deeper thought processes like that can be learned means that there should be an eventual shift to something that's not feral. But I don't know.
Also, speak with animals only works on beasts, so you couldn't talk to someone if they didn't know any languages. Um, someone with
Hmm.
telepathy could speak to you, I think. But
Oh,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Speak
But
with
isn't
Animals
that the
only
thing
works on
though?
beasts.
Isn't that the thing though that even without like a language, humans are still pretty capable at communicating via like
Mhm.
physical signals,
That's what separates
like
us.
facial
Yeah.
expressions, hand gestures, things that animals can't quite do. So I think
Well, Bun
I don't
says
know.
I'm wrong, and humans are still likely to make moral decisions. So we need to have 2 test cases, okay? So we need a group of babies raised by animals
So goes
in
very
the
well.
controlled group. No, just kidding. Um,
Yeah, okay, let's go find a baby. Just kidding. Oh man. And also, I mean, think about it too. We're getting a little off topic.
Hey,
This is what this show is for. Is like, can a human really be raised by animals?
well, I'll have you know that Romulus and Remus were raised by a wolf, and they eventually went to found Rome and the Roman Empire. So,
Sure.
he's got us. He's
in
got
in
us.
my
Man,
in my creation mythology, I was raised by giraffes. So a couple thousand years from now, we'll pass that one down.
so what empire are you gonna found?
I don't know. I don't think I'm up for the task. Oh,
Um,
so go ahead.
I'll just say, yeah, I find that alignment, like, when I first played D&D for the first time, I was, like, really strict with the alignment and how I would act and role play my character. But later I learned they're, like, basically more like guidelines for you to learn how to role play your character, not like 'cause I was very strict, like, when I made a paladin, like, I was basically lawful stupid, right? Where, like, we can't do any wrong, and I think it's okay to role play that way, but it kinda causes strife within the party a little bit, depending if they're cool with that kinda character or not.
It it so what I like to think of is that alignment is not prescriptive. It's descriptive, right? You can act outside of what your alignment is because it just describes your character, right? Not the other way around. So your character makes the choices that they make because they are a person in your fictional world. Um, and I think that's where things become more interesting is when your character acts outside of sort of their natural like morality or just their alignment in that case. Just yeah, I'm not a fan of saying, well, my character's chaotic good, so I have to do this. It's like, no, your character does what they would like, and it's descriptive of your character. So that's
I think
yeah.
to me it seems highly dependent on like the players at the table, the DM, what kind of story they're trying to tell. I've seen it where campaigns have characters that are like a paladin or something, and they're meant to do good, and then there's some story elements that happen that cause them to stray from the path. So, and they continually do something that strays from what they originally aligned as, and so the DM made a decision to like shift their alignment to something else, and as a result of that, like their god didn't communicate them with them as much anymore. So like I guess you can make some like story and gameplay stuff around it if you really wanted to dive into it. But yeah, I think it's more of like just a general idea for how your character behaves and their personality.
Yeah, and since fourth edition, they've really stopped leaning so much on alignment. Fourth edition was the first where they stopped leaning on it so much because in previous editions, like where like paladin has to be lawful good. If your
Yeah.
alignment shifted, you're not a paladin anymore.
Yep. Break your vow, your powers are gone. Level up in
So
something else.
things have changed. Yeah, very much guidelines, especially in modern D&D. We've talked about that too. It's gonna be a useful tool for creating a character or for a DM
Mm.
for creating NPCs. Or I've had people tell me like you when you're thinking of a new like if you're making up a new village or a city, throw an alignment on it as a starting point to see kind of what that city is like.
Like in our campaign, Rosenden is
Hmm.
like got some very strict codes. They like certain things, they very much don't like other things,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
most of the people
Super
align with that.
super
So
mega
Mhm.
law. Yeah.
Mega law. Yeah, that's
Mega
off
law.
the axis, just mega
Yeah.
law.
'Cause I wouldn't say it's like either good or bad. They don't care if you're a good or bad person, but if you break the law, you break the law and you in trouble.
Sounds like lawful neutral to me.
yeah, well, I think that place very much believes there are bad people, and they're the ones that use magic.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
don't know. Yeah, lawful, probably lawful neutral.
So what we have is each of us, we have got a list of pop culture characters. So all three of us have a list of characters, and we're going to kind of go through. It's sort of a fun, just silly exercise. There's no right or wrong answers here of where we think they would be on an alignment chart. And I'll say too is that in chat, if any of you are watching us now live, feel free to throw whatever you think out in the chat, and we can talk about those characters as well.
Yeah, just throw out their name and not alignment you think they should be, and then we can
Hmm.
give you our interpretation. And then you're like, "Well, I think this character is actually this," and then we're like, "Oh yeah, let's have a dialogue about it."
Hmm. Cool. I'm gonna
Yeah.
choose VS to start first. Pick one from your list.
Okay. Well, let's who should we start with here? Let's start with Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars. Those of
Hmm.
you that are familiar with the Star Wars universe, the Clone Wars, and so on, will know Ahsoka. She is Anakin's Padawan. Um, and not spoiling anything, events happen, and she had some major character arcs and shifts, and so she can be a fairly complex one to try and fit on an alignment chart because she definitely changes. Um, I will say when she was a young Padawan, she was probably, let's see, I want to say neutral good. Um, and because she is a Jedi in training, so she was trying to do what was right for the people that the Jedi were trying to help. Um, but she was also young and energetic and brash, so she wasn't necessarily following all the rules all the time, but she still tried to do the best thing for people. So I think that puts her in neutral good. And then as she progresses and certain things happen, there's a major character shift, and I think mm, I would probably put her in lawful neutral as she is currently represented in Star Wars now as an older Force user. Um, she is still overall good, but
If she's good, then why is she in neutral?
she's a good she's a good moral person. However, she is had to toe the line uh, because she was I don't know. Can we like
Let's
I
just
know
say,
maybe some people haven't seen the Clone Wars and whatnot, but
I
like
mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
it
It's
I,
has
I
totally
been
been
a
a
long
long
haven't
time.
I haven't I'll say I haven't seen the Clone Wars. Like I tried a while back on the first season, which everyone tells me is the worst one, and I couldn't slog my way through it. It's on my list, but I don't care if you spoil anything. It's
I
been
watched
out
well,
it
for
on
who
and off.
knows.
well,
Uh, so it's fine
she
for me. So
she
spoilers, everyone, for this character.
spoilers
Mute,
for
mute
Ahsoka.
the podcast, the whatever, just mute it, and then we'll give you a thumbs up afterwards,
Yeah,
or
Unless you're
spoilers
verbal
listening, then
for
thumbs
you'll
up
never
for those who
know.
are listening. Yeah.
so she gets framed for something, and um, basically some of the people she looked up to in the Jedi Order would not believe her, and this causes her to lose faith in the Jedi to the point where she leaves. And when we later find her in other series, she's no longer associated with Jedi, and she's sort of taken this a lot of people call it like a gray Jedi role or something, where it's like
Mhm.
they haven't fallen to the dark side, but they don't embrace all the lawful ideology of the Jedi either. They just kind of exist as a Force user, and they'll I guess she tends to act in accordance with her own personal codes, which is one of the very strong things with lawful neutral. It appears is they have their own personal codes, and she's not gonna like do anything evil, but she's also not afraid to, I guess, do things that Jedi would not. So I think in that way she fits in lawful neutral by the time where she's at now, like in terms of Mandalorian and all that stuff that she's in currently as an older,
Mhm.
much older individual. So that's my take
I
on it.
The only thing that I could think of is when you mentioned that when she was in training and was a Jedi, you picked neutral good.
Hmm.
I feel like if you are a Jedi of some sort, like why wouldn't you be lawful good? Because you literally have a Jedi code that you abide by.
So when
Yeah.
I think of lawful good, I think of like Yoda and I think of Obi-Wan
Mhm.
and Mace Windu, basically the Jedi Masters on the Jedi Council. Those guys are all lawful good to me, and Anakin, like she's Anakin's Padawan, and Anakin very much did not fit with. He didn't
Mhm.
align with all the ideals of the
Yeah.
Jedi
Well,
Council.
yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Well, I mean, even before his turn, right?
No.
There's a
Yeah.
reason
Correct.
why
Yeah.
he
Mhm.
turned, right? And in Ahsoka in the series is like a young girl who's like, very much will like follow her own whims and not listen to Anakin. And so if the Jedi Council is lawful good and they're here, and Anakin's not quite with them, even
Mhm.
as a full-fledged Jedi, and he's here, Ahsoka is a very
Mhm.
independent girl, and so I think like, yeah, I mean,
Makes sense with how you're describing then, yeah.
I you could make an argument that she's still lawful because she's a Jedi, but I at the young age, and how she was in the show, I saw her maybe as more neutral good,
Mhm.
just because she would kinda, like, shirk the traditions sometimes in order to, like, help people that
So
needed
it
it.
goes from neutral good to lawful neutral, you think, in her character
Yeah.
arc?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. I can vibe with that.
Yeah.
All right, Max.
I don't think
You
she
get
was a true neutral later on. I think she has enough I think she affirms herself enough and follows her, a set of moral codes that puts her in more lawful neutral than, like, a
Mhm.
neutral stance or, like, a fully good stance. Who knows?
I mean, we're gonna find out more when her show comes out and
Mhm.
I can't wait.
see more of a person. Uh, like I haven't watched much of Clone Wars either, but I know she's from there. But yeah, so I'm curious how she'll progress.
Booms, do you
Yeah.
wanna go next or do you want me to go next?
I was gonna tell you to go next.
Okay. I am going to pick the bride from Kill Bill, main character that Uma Thurman plays, which I think is very interesting, because they're the protagonists of the film, right? But there's a couple things that I think are important to keep in mind. So, first off, her and her compatriots are all assassins, right? So, as an assassin, I would say at first, lawful evil, right? And then what goes on through the movie. So if you aren't familiar with the movie, this is probably full of spoilers if you're talking about any of these characters. What happens in the movie is essentially they try to have her killed and like take her kid away from her and all kinds of that stuff. So she goes to hunt down her previous assassin compatriots and her old boss and lover. So I think so prior to the movie being assassin, probably lawful evil. I think for the movie neutral evil. Just because the whole movie is about her trying to get revenge on the people that harmed her. And basically, just the whole series of movies is about her trying to murder a bunch of people.
She does murder a lot, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Quite a bit.
hmm Any thoughts?
Um,
Do you do you think that he just killing for the sole purpose of survival, is that still, like, evil?
So, like defending yourself, like for
Yeah,
survival.
but, I mean,
Um,
still the revenge thing is very strong, but
yeah, I mean, like defending yourself isn't inherently evil, right? If somebody comes after you specifically, I mean, you got to do to protect yourself, right? But I think for her in the movie, it goes sort of beyond that because she hunts down her her old coworkers.
yeah, he does.
That's my take, anyway.
where did you put her? Yeah.
Neutral evil in the movie. She's not abiding by her assassin code anymore. You get paid to kill people, right? She's just
Yeah,
seeking revenge on people she used to work with that wronged her and also tried to kill her. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my first stab at it.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. Um. Hmm.
yeah, I think the moment she finds out that she's pregnant, that's when it switched.
hmm
Like, things changed because she could have easily killed the assassin at the door, but she's like, "Hey, I just found out I'm having a baby. Maybe we just call it a day," you know?
hmm Yeah, I tried to pick tough ones and not just like good, because those get talked about a lot. What do you think, VS? Do you agree? Disagree?
Um. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It's been so long since I've seen
hmm
this that a lot of the story beats have left me. But like, based on what you said, I think I would have to agree with your assessment on this. Eh, From what I can recall, uh, yeah, I don't know where else to put her.
hmm Yeah, the
I
whole
really don't know.
the
Yeah.
whole the whole murdering people really puts a wrench in the in the
Yeah,
operation.
you're kind of like you're on one of the bottom 3 on the grid, I think, at that point.
hmm All right, go ahead, moves.
Okay, I can pull up a equally as complicated character, um, that kinda dances around 2 sides of the spectrum.
hmm
Um, uh, Gollum from Lord of the Rings or
hmm
Smeagol, um, because there are 2 very distinct personalities where Gollum, to me, is n neutral evil,
hmm
uh, due to the sole purpose of Gollum wanting the precious and doing and willing to do whatever it takes to keep the precious and get the precious of the One Ring. But where
hmm
Smeagol, on the other hand, may originally, before all this happened, started out as neutral good when they were still a hobbit.
hmm
Um, and then upon finding the ring, uh, instantly, like, just, I don't know, through the desire and the evil of the ring corrupting Smeagol, and then
hmm
eventually becoming Gollum. But you kind of see it in the books and in the films where there's a little bit of he switches, like when he meets Frodo and Sam and swears on the ring to help them and not kill them. then he kinda turns lawful because he's making an oath on the ring to help out Sam and Frodo throughout the journey. So there's, like, a lot of switching with alignments
Mhm.
with Gollum.
But he doesn't really help them in the end, though, right? Like his plan wasn't
No, it
actually to help him.
I
Yeah.
think
His plan was
Smeagol's
always to get the ring
yeah,
back.
the plan
Yeah.
was always to get the ring, but, well, like, Smeagol making an oath on the ring to get them to where they are until they felt that they were betrayed,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Oh, well, F these 2 hobbits, um, let's get the ring back, and then we'll go through the cave."
Yeah, the
Mhm.
sort of dual personality aspect of him is what makes it very interesting because there's the definitely sort of neutral evil aspect where he's just acting on almost instinct and just a pure desire to have the ring and will
Mhm.
kill whatever he needs to find it or have it back. But then like the personality shifts show a lot more of how he used to be. Uh more more friendly, more willing to converse with things, whether that's all a ploy. I think they really do show that there's like at least in the movies,
Yeah, in
that
this film
there's
specifically,
a
yeah,
distinction between the personalities where he's like fighting with himself.
Mhm.
Uh, so you
yeah,
know the more friendly aspect I think is genuine a lot of the time when he's with the hobbits, and but it's the other aspect that creeps up that kind of corrupts that and convinces himself that he's being manipulated. So
yeah,
he's a hard one to pin down. He's definitely neutral evil when he just goes full Gollum.
Full Gollum. I
Yeah.
think whenever the Smeagol side comes through, I think it. I don't know which one to put it in, but I think there has to be some lawful element to it, right? And the reason why I say that is when the Smeagol side comes through while he's still Gollum, his sort of dual personality is he always talks about like, well, no, I couldn't do this to Master. Like it's always like out of loyalty to who he's calling his master,
yeah,
being Frodo in that case. So I think that I agree with neutral evil when he goes full Gollum, but when the Smeagol side kind of comes through when he's arguing with himself, I think there has to be some sort of lawful element to it because that's what's guiding his moral
Yeah.
choices. Is that he's doing whatever he can to not sort of cross who he's calling his master.
yeah.
There is a
It's
sense of
hard
loyalty there. Uh,
because I wouldn't call it lawful good, right? But,
Hmm.
um,
Lawful
because
neutral.
he keeps getting pulled by Gollum to do bad things, but, like, that originally didn't click until, like, he hears his name again.
Hmm.
Like, "Good Smeagol always helps," so he's, like, always a happy guy, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
think,
dances I think he dances around a lot, but I think ultimately in the end and to the core of Gollum is neutral evil.
yeah, 100%.
That I think leads to an interesting thing in terms of D&D is can you is it possible for a player to try and portray a character with a sort of dual personality and
Yeah.
not have it become something a problem for the rest of the table? Is it something you would have to do in a session 0, be like, "Hey,
Hmm.
I've got an
Oh,
idea for a
sure.
character," and,
Oh yeah, definitely
I guess,
possible.
is it worth trying to run a character like that, or is it m more should you just kind of like
Just depends on your table. I mean, I
Yeah.
think in our case, if someone was like, "Hey, I want to run this idea," most of us would be like, "Sure, yeah, go for it."
I
Yeah.
I was gonna pitch that to Mac for campaign 2, but I was like, "You know what? That might be too much for me to handle, so maybe not."
I will say
Mhm.
Um,
I've seen it sort of done in the context of, like, somebody who's like an honorable, like, warrior, but then, maybe they multi-classed as a Zerker, and there's some story element that when they go into a rage, then they have a complete shift where they're less honorable and it's more, like, bloodthirsty. I've seen that, but it's
Mhm.
not quite the same. It's not like I don't know.
I played in a game where we had a player who had dual personalities, and like the first personality was a super aloof person, generally very nice and helpful, and the other personality was basically a psychopath. Um, and then the DM would decide during RP moments to roll to see which personality would come out. So it ended up being quite hilarious, and it was a lot of fun
Hmm.
because like for and then for instance, like we weren't like interrogating. We were like trying to gather information, and then it was like, oh, it was being all nice and friendly, and then he switched, and then basically went super psychopath, and then the NPC was basically in tears crying, and then he switched back, and he's like, oh, why are you crying? So
Like a Jekyll and Hyde
Like,
sort of thing.
yeah,
reminds me of
so
like Split, the
it was
movie.
really fun, but I think it's really hard to pull off,
Yeah.
especially like you don't want to cross that line too, right? So
Mhm.
you get the
Yeah,
point.
you can that's why I said there's like a line there, I think, where it can be played well if the person tries and just
Mhm.
to figure out how that would work. But then there's people that just be like, at any random point, I just kind of want to do insane stuff, regardless of what's going on. It's like I don't know if that really
It's
works.
yeah. Always talk to your table. And Zeus, we were talking about because we were putting Gollum in alignment and talking about his split personalities, and
Hmm.
VS asked if you could actually do that in a D&D game, and that's where Bun mentioned that Zeus, you had done something similar in one of the campaigns that we played with your character.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
all
one. That's a
interesting.
good pick, moves.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move. Let's move on. It's up to you again, VS.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna pull something out of the anime world. I picked Broly from DBZ or DBZ movies. For those of you that don't know, uh, in the DBZ universe, there's a warrior race called Saiyans. They love fighting and warring, and they travel to other planets, and they tend to start wars and try to wipe the people off planets, and they're generally not great. And Broly is very much a Saiyan to the core. If I remember right, I think he was a royalty, uh, royalty because they have like kings and whatnot. But he was like the ultimate Saiyan. Um, where
Staying.
yeah, he's the embodiment of what a Saiyan is, and um, he when provoked goes into like these fits of rage where he grows in size to like this gigantic uh being and is immensely powerful and is threatening destruction and all that, and of course like Goku and the other heroes have to step in and try and stand in his way, which they almost can't. um uh this character, I think, is a pretty easy one. I think um when he's full Saiyan, when he is in that all powerful fight first sort of wanton destruction mode, you could very easily put him into either neutral evil or chaotic evil. I think he can bounce back and forth between either of those. However, when he's not going completely ape shit, there is an aspect there is an aspect where he is um sort of expresses a lot of intelligence, and um he's not completely berserk at all times. And so there's a part of him that could also fit into maybe lawful evil occasionally, where he's more calculated. Um
Can I
uh but
can I
for the
give
most
a
part, I think it could be a neutral or chaotic evil.
can I get a give a quote to you about his intelligence,
Sure.
or when he's not going so-called ape shit?
Yeah.
All right, so this is a quote from the legendary Super Saiyan, uh, Dragon
Okay.
Ball Z Broly. if you just let me kill you all before, you wouldn't be dealing with this pain now. You're all complete and utter waste of Saiyan blood." Sounds
That's
sounds
pretty evil to
pretty
me.
sounds pretty chaotic evil to me.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember like a lot of the context for that, but that's what I'm saying. He's definitely evil. Um, and I think for a majority of what he does, can you could put him in either neutral or chaotic. There's an aspect where he goes fully chaotic and is a threat to everything. Um, and then other times he seems to just be fighting for the sake of like having a nice fight. And that way you could put him in neutral evil. Um, Yeah, it's mostly when he's not like saying rage is where you could possibly put him in lawful, where he was just like a normal dude. That's he's still a Saiyan, and I hate to paint Saiyans as like all one thing, but they're very much portrayed in DBZ as like all like a monolith of like destructive warriors. So you know, no matter where what, he's evil in some way, and I think a majority of the time he's like neutral or chaotic. He's an awesome character. He's pretty iconic. He's like way bigger than anybody else, and I think the DBZ universe and like its sheer size and power. And
Yeah.
he's just like a force to be reckoned with. I've always thought he was so cool, and he's easy alignment wise, but I think you have to have one of those characters in there that's just like that massive brute that just wants to beat the shit out of everybody and break everything. So that's broadly. He's cool. That's my thoughts.
I don't know much about Broly. I didn't see the film either, so I,
It's
but
been a long
I know of the character. Well, so I'll have to agree with you.
time.
Yeah, I'll have to because I haven't watched any of those movies. I've watched the last time I watched Dragon Ball Z was when I was a young boy waiting for Gundam Wing to come on Toonami. So
Same. Uh,
it's
That's
been
my
Well, in the
a
stuff.
movie,
long
you didn't
while.
have to wait 3 episodes for them to power up, so
uh, cool. My pick next.
Hmm.
yep.
Oh man. Um. Hmm. I'm going to pick 11 from Stranger Things.
Okay.
I don't know anything
So,
about Stranger Things, so this is on you guys.
you've seen it, Bibs?
Yeah, I've yep, seen it.
I am going to say
Spoiler warning, Stranger Things spoilers. Okay.
mhm. I I feel like 11 is definitely chaotic on that scale. I think chaotic, and I'm kind of wavering between neutral and good. Um, I could I could probably see her as chaotic good. I think for the most part, but I don't know because she really most of what she's doing is trying to protect her newfound friends and kind of keep them from either being captured or killed or some of those kind of things. So I think yeah, I'll probably call her chaotic good for now. But yeah, another kind of complex character. But go ahead.
Uh, it's tough because, um, I think maybe you're right. A lot of her motivations are selfish, though.
Mhm.
Um, yes, protecting friends is good, but it's for her own reasons for her to protect, like, her friends and her family.
Mhm.
Um, but she has, like when she was a kid, she had no issues of, like, using her powers
Yeah.
to well, I guess for survival reasons mostly.
Hmm.
So I feel like because she's kind of alignment fluid because she was born and raised in a lab and doesn't really know
Yeah.
right society right from wrong. But like
Hmm.
most of her motivations are pure for her own reasons, even though she does mean good. And when she
Hmm.
meets the right people, then that goodness comes out. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think I would agree.
Somewhere between chaotic good, chaotic neutral, back and forth, depending on where in time you look. I think. Yeah, I think so. But definitely, yeah, I'm in agreement. Chaotic for sure. It's just more about the like the moral motivations. Because yeah, she does a lot of her things out of her own interests, but I think she genuinely does a lot of things to also protect her friends too. Which yeah,
I mean,
somewhere in there.
you know, she's also just, basically saved the world, right? So
Yeah,
that's like
that's
pretty good thing to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, we'll call it that. Somewhere chaotic good, chaotic neutral, depending. All right, what's your next one?
All right. And I saw Bun's request for Sylvanas Windrunner, but which version of Sylvanas? Uh, let's see. I'm gonna go with like a super staple iconic, Lucy Ricardo from the show I
Mm.
Love Lucy. Um, I think she's pretty straightforward, pretty super simple and easy. That she's chaotic good. Um, in the sense that she is a good person. She means well. But like entropy just surrounds her where a bunch of craziness happens.
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of her motivations are for the betterment of her with her and Ricardo. But the way she goes about things is she's willing to to do things makes shortcut.
Mhm.
Uh, so definitely she's definitely not lawful by any means. So I would say maybe neutral, but mostly chaotic.
Mhm.
I agree. Um, Even though I haven't really, I've seen some like the iconic "I Love Lucy" moments. I've never sat down and watched it, but I'm familiar enough with her character that
Mhm.
I moves I think is spot on. I think chaotic good. She's just that's what the show is like.
Yeah.
uh, She's a good
Yeah.
person that gets into all kinds of trouble, and it's sometimes it's her fault, sometimes it's not, and shenanigans happen, and it's good fun. So yeah, I think that's a good solid chaotic good
I'm in
representation.
the same boat as you, VS, because I've seen some episodes of I Love Lucy. I definitely haven't seen a lot, but I agree that that's kind of what the show is specifically.
Yeah.
I
If she
agree
was
with you.
lawful, it'd be very boring.
I just think of the famous like chocolate factory conveyor
Yep.
belt scene where they're
So
just
good.
trying to do a job. They're just trying to do it the best they can, and it goes haywire, and you have and stuffing the chocolates everywhere and eating it, and it's good fun. Yeah, yeah.
Back to you, I think, VS.
Oh, okay. Um, let's let's take a trip back to the Lord of the Rings world, and I did Gandalf,
Hmm.
the
Oh,
famous wizard Gandalf, which to some might be an easy alignment. I think he's a little bit more nuanced than people might initially think. I could see people automatically putting him in like good, you know,
yeah.
neutral good or what
Mhm.
have you. Um, he is a wizard. Um, Specifically when he's Gandalf the Grey. Um, he uh he's described as being quick to anger, but also quick to laughter. And he spends a lot of time with the hobbits because he doesn't care for um, other other wizards and other folk of that nature. And um, I think you can make the argument that when he's gray, that I would say, either neutral good or lawful neutral. I
Hmm.
lean more towards lawful neutral.
Really?
Yes. He's a great guy, um, and he's, super friendly to the hobbits and whatnot. I There's also a bit of, chaotic in there too with him, right? Um, so you could almost mm, see, it's tough. You could almost wanna put him on, like, a chaotic good maybe at some moments. Just because he's such an outside the box thinker a lot of the times, and some of the things he pushes other people to do are kind of like maybe not the best, but ultimately ends up being the best things for people. Um, like
So
asking.
you're saying he skirts between lawful and chaotic. So would you think neutral good would right in the middle because
That's why
he can go both ways?
my initial thing was neutral good. I could see I could see making a case for a lawful neutral, uh, es- especially as he becomes Gandalf the White. But
I,
then you could also say he's lawful good as Gandalf the White.
yeah, I so thinking about Gandalf and like so Gandalf is one of the Maiar, who is turns into one of the Astari, which the Astari being the wizards that were sent to Middle Earth, and their sole express purpose is to basically unite the free peoples of Middle Earth and to push back against the Dark Lord of Sauron. So I think if his only purpose of being in Middle Earth is to basically help the people, uh, keep Sauron from taking over, gotta be good, right? I think anyway. So I don't know if neutral would cut it for me in my opinion. Between lawful, neutral, chaotic, I think that's more up in the air. Like I agree with what you were saying, and it also depends on Gandalf the Grey versus Gandalf the White. Very different personality wise.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking in terms of like the extended like lore of like what Gandalf is and what the ultimate mission. I was just
Mm-hmm.
more basing it off of how he's characterized in the story of like the Fellowship of the Rings and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't exactly have access to all that. Because what is that? A lot of stuff like Silmarillion stuff or not? Or do
Not
they brush? They kind of like touch on it a little bit in
mm-hmm.
Fellowship,
Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
but most of the
and the
time with him, I'm just trying to go by sort of his personality and like the things he says and the way he behaves. And
yeah, I mean,
he's definitely, I think you can firmly put him in good. Some people
Mm-hmm.
could make a case for a lawful neutral aspect. I don't know about that, but chaotic neutral, I think neutral is a strong spot when he's gray and lawful when he's white. He definitely firms up when he becomes Gandalf the White. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's not quite as mischievous as he is when he's gray.
yeah, I mean, when he was Gandalf the Grey, he loves to party, he smokes,
Mhm.
he creates fireworks and chaos, and
He
he likes
convinces hobbits to go on dangerous journeys.
he likes to have a good time. So
Yeah.
I would say in that aspect, it's a little chaotic because he's, like, getting people to do dangerous things.
And it's like,
Um,
what's the famous thing? Wizards never late. Like
yeah,
that's a
they arrive
very
precisely
like
when they means to,
that's
yeah.
a
Mm-hmm.
very chaotic like
Yeah, yeah, they show up when they show up, and it was all planned.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I agree. I would say neutral good as Gandalf the Grey and lawful good as Gandalf the White.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
One of the one of my favorite people overall from that entire universe of Lord of the Rings. I think can't. It's hard to beat Gandalf, man.
This is gonna make me watch the extended again. So it sounds like I have my weekend planned.
Oh yeah.
your
That's
your
hard.
my
That's a good
yearly
weekend.
my yearly Lord of the Rings rewatch.
Yeah.
That's a good weekend.
All right.
All right,
That's
next
all
Good
I got
one.
to
one.
say on that.
Oh, it's my turn now.
Yep.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yearly? Well, it's quarterly, maybe. Maybe it's a quarterly rewatching. Man, let's see. Let's go with Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Oh, another complex character. Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking of like the character's like arc completely. I think also this whole podcast is spoilers. So if you haven't seen these shows, I'm sorry, but they're years old at this point. Um, White in the beginning starts cooking meth, right, to sell to make money to pay for his medical bills because he can't afford them because he has cancer, right? Because he was a
Hmm.
school
Right.
teacher, couldn't afford the bills, right?
Right.
So he stole from the school, did things that were illegal. Um, but I think it was a means to an end initially for him to sort of basically pay his, pay his medical bills and stuff. Um, I think in the beginning there, I would probably put him um maybe chaotic neutral or maybe just true neutral, one of those two. Because I think in the beginning, and since this is the beginning, I'm gonna go later on after this. Is he's just doing it so to make money to I guess pay for his medical bills.
Yeah, I think at the very beginning of his story, he's
Hmm.
most definitely true neutral. I mean, he is essentially just a townsfolk that has some problems that he's got to deal with, and then he comes up with the drug idea to pay for it, and
Yeah,
then
Which is like inherently bad because he's making drugs
yeah,
yeah,
to sell to people, and, drug addiction is really bad. So he's
yeah,
just
yeah. And you're right. You're right. Bun was saying he's initially doing it for his family as well too. Yeah, so they're taken care of. But yeah, is I mean, yeah, I mean this that's complex. But I think so. I think he like true neutral makes sense. But I think as the story progresses, he most definitely drops down into I think neutral evil towards like the middle and the end of his arc. I
yeah.
think for sure because it gets to a point where it's not about it's not about him or his
well,
family. I mean his family anymore or the medical bills. It's about
um,
just kind of collecting more power.
I'll admit I haven't watched the whole show. I
Yeah,
think I started watching the first season way back and just never followed through. Could there you'll know more than me then. Could there be an aspect of lawful evil?
I don't
Does he
think.
have, like, a set of
Mm,
even when he's transitions to just, like, doing it for power, is there, does he have, like, a code? Does he hold loyalty, as a high
I,
standard or
I think
I
at
think
first,
I think that as this kind of our character arc continues, like he purposefully sort of like bucks a lot of like any tradition or code or loyalty. Like I think that doesn't hold true for very long.
well,
I guess the
yeah,
way I s oh, go ahead.
at first he was like, "I'll make just enough and then I'll quit." But then
Hmm.
he never quit. So it just got worse and worse.
Yeah.
I guess I look at it from starting from kind of like, somebody diving headfirst into this criminal world that they're not familiar with, and
Hmm.
in that case, they kind of start out not following any sort of like um, maybe order or traditions. They're kind of like winging it, right? And then as he builds sort of an empire, I'm guessing I'm just thinking of like somebody that's like at the top of like a sort of a drug trade empire. Like, do they hold loyalty from the people they work with? Like, or do they expect loyalty? Do they follow like certain set of codes? I
I
don't know how it works in the show. I don't know if he ended up
I
like that or
I
if
think
it's
some people do in that show, but I don't think he does.
he doesn't
Because
specifically.
Yeah,
because
no.
because he is
Okay,
constantly getting into trouble because he directly goes against some of those loyalties or like codes or those sort of
gotcha.
things
Okay,
in that world. Because he's basically throughout the show stepping in and taking other
Yeah.
people's
He
stuff.
is the one who knocks,
Yes.
okay? So
okay,
he kind
that
of
makes
puts
sense.
off on himself to become like a big playmaker until
Yeah.
he's not, until
Yeah.
he's in trouble.
That's why I defaulted to you on that because I hadn't seen to the like ending seasons, so I
Hmm.
don't know how exactly he ends up personality wise.
I mean,
I'm gonna
he
have
basically
to.
becomes corrupt and
Yeah.
yeah, power hungry. But I
Hmm.
think at the end, he's trying to make things right, but still in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have to
Chaotic
rewatch that
garbage.
too. I just finished Better Call Saul, which I think is great as well, but I don't want to get too much into that. But yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch that show too. Yeah. That's our take on Walter White. So it goes over to you again, Moobs.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the biggest true neutral character in the world, and that is Godzilla. Big
Interesting.
old Godzilla. Because or maybe unaligned,
I was about
perhaps.
to yeah to say that. I was like, why not unaligned?
So the reason I'm not saying unaligned because Godzilla isn't just like a feral big dumb creature, right? Uh, in the beginning, like the very first film, Godzilla is like destroying Tokyo, wreaking havoc, and the military's got to stop Godzilla. But what happened? Godzilla just goes away. But then Godzilla kind of evolves into a more bigger creature with like perhaps an ideology. So, Godzilla eventually becomes the defender of Earth.
Hmm.
Um, and not necessarily to protect humanity, but sometimes Godzilla does protect humanity, but it's mostly to fight off other big bad monsters who's
Hmm.
for trying to I want to say like destroy humanity or the planet, but just because they're big giant monsters and Godzilla's got to stop them and keep the he's the king of the monsters, right? So he's got to keep the planet in check. Um,
Hmm.
so that's why I would say because of Godzilla's purpose to protect the planet, Godzilla is true neutral because he still wrecks and destroys buildings, cities, levels them, like completely destroys cities, and sometimes the government has to step in and deter Godzilla from cities to fight in the open and perhaps lure him into other giant kaijus to fight. Um, yeah, so I think
I
Godzilla's true neutral.
I would lean more towards unaligned because a lot of the things what you were saying, like the government has to lure him out of these things, has to do these things. Like I think what you're just describing is like I don't know if and I guess it depends on which Godzilla we're talking about. Like the classic movies, I haven't seen the newest movie, like or the one in the '90s. I don't know, but
We'll talk
I
about the '90s
think
one.
yeah.
Hey man,
Does Godzilla have the capacity for rational thought? Do you think?
I can argue yes.
Because if you
Yes,
think
Godzilla
yes,
absolutely can.
so if you think yes,
Um,
then yeah, I think neutral makes sense. If no, if Godzilla is just a giant kaiju that
no,
that fights because they
is
fight,
he
then that's
is
I
he
think it's
fighting out
unaligned.
of instinct to protect his territory, or is he very specifically is he intelligently understanding like scenarios and that he's like trying to guard
Oh,
against?
there's different lights that they portray Godzilla. Herald of the Earth, Protector of the Earth, King of the Monsters, where he will dominate and has to be the alpha. But there is like this humane side of Godzilla where he wants to protect humanity. Because Godzilla is one of the kaijus who can sense the power of other kaijus. And then it gets even crazier because then aliens get involved. And then therefore Godzilla really has to protect Earth because these aliens are like sending out Monster Zero and Hedorah, which is like this pollution monster and like all this other things. But like the only so the way they communicate with Godzilla is through Mothra, and Mothra is basically like the mother, the mother moth of Earth, like the ultimate protector of Earth. Like I would say, like
Mhm.
lawful good sense. But they had to get like these super tiny twins who can sing the Mothra, and then Mothra will go to Godzilla and talk to Godzilla. Um, so yeah, he and then there's also another example where Godzilla meets Jet Jaguar, which is he's essentially Ultraman in a sense. Um,
Mhm.
and Jet Jaguar, it seems like they're having a conversation through their kaiju talk, to fight, like, these 2 other kaiju, so and then they're able to, like then they do some wrestling moves and shit, but, like, they were able to shake hands and, like, plan out, like, strategy how to defeat these 2 alien monsters, so, yeah, I
Yeah.
think he does have Godzilla does have intelligence, not just, like, a feral, kaiju.
Yeah, because I think it's depending on the depiction of like the classic movies versus the more modern movies versus like the cartoon, like what Bun was mentioning in the chat, the cartoon. Like I have no doubt, Bun, if you're basing it off the cartoon, yeah, he's probably good because. But I guess it depends on the depiction of Godzilla.
The cartoon we were talking about is the one based off the '90s movie, right?
I
Um,
don't know. I just know
don't
if it's a
think
show for
so.
kids, they're
I
probably gonna paint
Oh,
the
It
Godzilla
was
as
more like
good.
the original Godzilla. Like he looked more like like the
okay.
dark green one.
Hmm.
And then Godzilla has a baby. That's like a whole 'nother thing.
90s one has babies. That's why he was
That's
pissed off.
true. Hmm.
So look, 9-year-old me liked the 1999 Godzilla because I was
Yeah.
9,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a
Definitely.
Godzilla toy. Like,
Definitely.
yeah.
I have, like, 6 Godzilla figurines behind me. Like, I really
Yeah.
love Godzilla.
I believe you. I'll go with what you say because I haven't seen a lot of the classic Godzilla
Yeah,
movies.
you can like we said, it depends on which depiction, but
Yeah, there's a
I'm
lot of
basing
errors.
there's
mine
definitely some that you
off.
could put in neutral.
Yeah, I'm basing mine off the 1999, blockbuster hit Godzilla movie. Was it Matthew Broderick was in it or
Yep,
Mhm.
99, 98?
the
Who
worm
else was in
guy.
that?
We call him the worm guy. I watched the movie a lot.
Yeah.
All right, is it back over to
I think
VS? We
it's
want to take some. We want to take some ones from chat.
yeah, we should do chat. I think Bun Bun threw in Ursula and Sylvanas Windrunner.
She said the AI from the Matrix as well. Which one do you want to grab?
You guys are the WoW guys. If
Um,
you wanna do
Sylvanas
Sylvanas.
is also a very complicated character
She
because
changes, right?
yeah, she
I
has a
do
whole
know that.
transformation. She
Yeah.
was a wood elf, and as a wood, she was an archer, still an archer, I guess. But yeah, very much a good character, but then gets corrupted and become. Oh, she meant her now, and then becomes undead and becomes super bad. I mean, everyone loved Sylvanas
Battle
until
for
people
Azeroth.
did not love Sylvanas.
Yeah,
I will
because I
say
I don't know her now. The one that I dug into most was in BFA and
I
a little
haven't
bit in
played WoW,
Shadowlands.
but the cinematic for Battle of Azeroth where, she screams for the Horde,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
No, she is a very badass character, and
Yeah,
even as being an undead character, I felt she was lawful evil. Uh, but then, yeah, for Shadowlands, and spoilers if you haven't played the not the recent expansion, but she basically destroys all of the Naris and burns the world tree and pretty much kills like thousands of elves. Um, and I didn't really get into that much expansion, so but that's just like my knowledge and then my eternal rage when she was like, "Why would you do this? She wouldn't do this." But I didn't
Hmm.
play the game to find out her reasons. Maybe maybe if we had Bun on, she would be able
The
to
the great
defend.
sundering of Nordrassil. Yeah, I think when
Yeah,
that happens, you're definitely firmly in the evil column
Mm.
yeah.
for
I mean,
sure.
she was lawful evil and then quickly became chaotic evil. But I didn't finish the expansion to find out for her why she did those things for what reasons. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
was
then yeah, I can't speak now because I don't know enough now because I didn't finish Shadowlands. I played Dragonflight for a little bit, so I don't know about now. If you say she's lawful good now, fun, then I believe you.
And there would have to be such a hard flip if she was that evil
yeah,
Hmm.
to
so she
to
had 2 hard
turn to the
flips.
opposite
Yeah,
end of the spectrum.
so I had to finish Shadowlands to find out.
Hmm.
Huh. Well, I can throw one out there
Go
Yeah,
for
go
it.
for it. While
that
chat thinks some other characters.
I think another good, solid, true neutral, Geralt from the Witcher
Mm.
series.
Mm.
I think you don't get much more neutral than Geralt, personally.
I think.
Witchers as a Witchers as a thing in that universe are the embodiment of like neutral. They exist to hunt monsters. Outside of that, they try to mind their own business. Geralt gets himself involved in the stuff, but ultimately, he finds himself like having to work with some of the worst people in that particular universe. Terrible kings, all sorts of other criminal elements. But then, he also has his own set of moral codes that he follows,
Which is why I was gonna
which
say lawful neutral because he has a
That
set
was
of codes, and Witchers have a set of beliefs and traditions. Hunting monsters for money. That's the whole like basis of their like society, and they can't do anything unless they've been paid. Like that feels very lawful to me.
yeah, I was gonna agree with
y-
Max there that
yeah, like in theory, yes.
I know
But I think there's very much like it that's the ideal thing for
Right.
witchers, but I think for many of them, especially in Geralt's case, he kind of has to come away from a lot of those codes that he had initially because fate is pulling so hard on him
Hmm.
in certain ways, and the people he gets involved with are I I mean, he if those are like a set of codes witchers are supposed to follow, Geralt's like ignores him a
Hmm.
lot when when he needs to.
Yeah.
I agree. He's not pure lawful.
Okay.
That's why I said I think he's a very solid true neutral when it comes to things.
I think yeah, I think it's interesting because when we're describing some of these characters that like if someone were trying to role play these characters, like trying to stick to an alignment, they would have a
Hmm.
difficult time, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I think that's a good thing because characters can kind of ebb and flow between their core alignment, but still be a more interesting person by being able to kind of step out of their zone a little bit. So I think
Yeah. People
trying to bring
change.
it back to D and D,
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, that's how that's maybe not that's just one way of how to role play your characters when you're playing
Hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons or any tabletop for that matter. So you could pick an alignment as your like home zone, but it's okay to step out of the box every once in a while
Hmm.
and kind of grow as a person as your character.
Yeah.
It's better for a character
People.
and better for storytelling, and people in general aren't super rigid. Some
Yeah.
people might seem that way, but they're really not.
A lot of
Eh.
people react to their environment and things that happen to them and like the world around them. They're just yeah, based on their experiences. So yeah,
Mhm. One thing
you
humans
wanna
are good at, adapting.
you wanna pull another one? Is it? We've got time for probably one more, another discussion. I
Uh,
I want. Oh, go ahead, Moves, if you had an idea already.
I did not. I was just gonna say, like, we could, like, talk about, like, Valkan and Ron from campaign 1. Because Valkan's your your character was very, kinda all over the place with alignment. Not, like, all over the place, but, 'cause Valkan had a lot of freedoms.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if I even put an alignment for him.
No, Ron is good.
Yeah, Ron
Um,
was neutral good.
I would almost
I think,
he would walk the line between lawful
Yeah,
and neutral
sure.
because there he was very much in tune with the Oak Father and what the Oak Father would want in some of those things and following the traditions and all that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
could
for
see Ron
sure.
being lawful.
There were a couple moments where Ron would turn the other eye, though, he
Hmm.
would look away when shenanigans went down, even though they weren't bad shenanigans, but,
Hmm.
like stealing and shit like that. So he
Yeah.
was he was okay with that because they were his friend.
Hmm.
For the most part, I think he played him fairly consistent throughout the campaign. He had a set of morals that he tried to stick with. Like Max said, he had the faith in the all in the what is
Oak
it, the Oak
Father.
Father?
Both
Yeah,
fathers.
Oak
and he never
Daddy.
really wavered from that.
No, yeah, I think Ron was a pretty for the most part, a one-dimensional character. Um,
Hmm.
like, had his oath, paladin stuff, Oak Father stuff, and then just generally just a good individual.
For Falcon,
Yeah, he's now looking back on it, it's kind of tough.
Yeah,
Uh, there's based on like his training and stuff, and his like loyalty to his uh like school and to Gin. There's almost a you could say like a lawful neutral aspect,
mhm,
but then there's also other moments where he's very neutral, or even maybe sometimes chaotic neutral.
my two thoughts were putting him either the lawful neutral or even like neutral good. Because I almost feel like Falcon, like he tried to do the right thing for the most part.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember of a specific instance where he specifically didn't try to do good.
Yeah, yeah, he would always end up doing or trying to do good for the most part. I think maybe sometimes he would protest on certain things like, do we really have to like
yeah,
do this thing, or but like ultimately he would if the group needed his help,
Hmm.
he would he would give his help. So yeah, neutral good. Lawful neutral, neutral good.
Hmm. Yeah, I think those fit him for sure.
What about Vin?
Oh, that's tough.
I could see
Chaotic
chaotic
neutral.
neutral.
Yeah,
Oh, big
Vin just
chaotic
wanted
neutral.
wanted to blow everything up, and then
Uh,
the very impatient. It was
I think she can bounce between chaotic good and chaotic neutral.
Hmm.
yeah. It depends on
Yeah,
the situation. Yeah, but again,
very.
maybe
Mhm.
because of the people Vin was with, it kind of forced her to do good, and maybe rein back on the chaos a bit.
Yeah.
But like at the core, Vin is just pure chaos.
And
Yeah,
we all
definitely.
know Bryn was secretly chaotic evil, so
No, yeah, I think Vin. chaotic neutral for sure, acting on her own whims, just basically whatever she wants to do in the moment. Bryn seems neutral, good to me. I think.
Yeah.
I would say Bryn was more lawful
You think so?
than neutral. Because Bryn had her
Yeah.
ideals.
Yeah.
She did have a code. Like reason she joined the Order Iberis was to help people. That was
Yeah.
her code.
And she
Like
also
very
had like
similar to Ron.
traditions from
Yeah.
where she was.
Mhm.
Not all the traditions, because she was very much against like the worshiping of the divine traditions, but like there's other
Yeah.
stuff from like her,
Like cultural traditions, especially
yeah,
with
from
her
like
papas and
her
stuff.
nanas or whatever.
Nanas. The
I
babas.
forget what
The nanas.
I forget what she called them.
The
Babas.
babas. Yeah.
Babas, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think neutral, because when I think of lawful good, it's more of like a good person doing what would be expected of them, like by society, right? And then when I think of Bryn, she didn't really care about society or traditions or beliefs. She's like, I just wanted to help people, is kind of her whole shtick, because her family was not really that well liked by society for the most part. They all thought they were a bunch of witches.
Yeah. I guess with that context, and yeah, I would agree then.
This stuff's hard. See how hard it
Yeah.
is just to stick someone in a box.
It's very difficult. Yeah.
I wanted to get a reaction on a bun by calling her evil, but I don't think she's at the
Do
keyboard.
not hear anymore.
I think that she's probably too busy playing Diablo. It's Diablo o'clock for her.
It is Diablo o'clock.
Uh,
Yeah, that was an interesting talk on alignment. It's not as straightforward as you think it would be. I know it's a
mhm.
complicated topic for new players. It's like what does alignment mean? And I hope this was very insightful that you don't have to stick to an alignment. You can be a very complex character that kind of slides between morality and societal
Mhm.
norms.
Yep. 100%. I agree. So thanks everybody for watching. Hope this was helpful or educational or fun or silly. But hope you learned something. Anyway, tomorrow is Bun finishing her art on Priestess Soraya at 7 p.m. Pacific. So check out that art stream, and then we're back on Friday for episode 6 of the campaign at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then also the Out of Combat for last week's episode is going to drop on Thursday on podcast and YouTube. So check all that stuff out. So thanks for watching so much, and we will see you all next time. Bye,
Hey, buddy.
everybody.
See you later.